Hi everyone, welcome to Sage's Garage. If I'm being honest, I don't fully know what today's episode is going to entail, but there is a lot to be done, so we're just going to get started. The next big step is getting the engine into the car, but before that can happen, literally 1,000 other things need to be done. I have decided I am going to take the sump off, even though I just put new oil in it, that's okay. I do want to really clean it out and make sure I get all those chunks out, make sure there's no metal filings. Number 2 is I am going to be taking this transmission off and bolting this engine up to my existing transmission that is still in my car. To do that, I need to put the engine on a more stable surface. So I'm going to be putting a table here, lifting up the engine and then putting it down and then taking off the transmission on a solid table. But in order to do that, to lift it up, I need to put back on the alternator and I also need to put on the lifting bracket. Something that I noticed is that this engine has an EGR valve on it, which was put on in the later years for emission controls on the US models. Now this one we discovered is a 1976 1500 US model, but my original one was a 73 1500, which means it didn't have emission controls. So there's all this extra stuff that doesn't go into my carburetor, and the best fix right now, because we're trying to do it quickly, even though I would really love to make this better for the planet and have emissions control, because that is really important to me. For right now, the only way that we can get this going is if I take off this exhaust manifold and intake manifold, as well as the air valve on the other side of the engine, which I will show you. I'm going to take those off and then attach everything that was originally on my engine. I'm basically just using the block and all of the parts, but anything that was not on my original engine, I'm going to take off and replace with parts that were on my engine, including things like the fan belt. I'm going to use mine just because there's already gaskets on it. Parts of it are still connected. Another thing is I am going to be adding a new air filter. With all that said, I'm sure I'm going to find even more stuff to do, but we have to get started. A super important step before we do anything else is I need to clean this engine off, because I can't put it in my car with all this gunk and grease and oil and all that yucky stuff. So I need to clean it all up as well. First thing I'm going to do is empty out the oil. I did get a proper spanner this time, and even though I just put in new oil, honestly it's worth just getting rid of it. I'm not going to reuse it, and that way I can clean out the sump and make sure it's all good to go. Oh, that's really dark, guys. So that proves that it was still really dirty in there. So you know what? It's good that we're cleaning it out, because it was clear when I poured it in. You guys saw. That's kind of crazy, and it's thick. The next step is I want to put this mounting bracket on here so that we can lift up this engine and then we can put a stable table underneath. Before I do that, I'm actually going to take off this grounding cable. One thing we learned from when we took out the engine the first time was that once we took the alternator off, we didn't have this mounting bracket anymore to be able to actually hoist up the engine. So I popped all of it back on my original engine just to make sure we had the right bolts and everything, but now I'm going to pop them off and then I'm going to attach this whole assembly to the new engine so that we have this mounting bracket to lift it up. The pin on this plate needed to go through this mounting bracket, so I took it off of the alternator, and that way I can just attach it properly and make sure it's all good before that. Also, what I called the mounting bracket before is actually the lifting bracket. Now we are going to try and hoist it up. Our next step is to take the bell housing off. As we take it off, we will block it up over here so it doesn't totally drop, but we'll wait until it's halfway off. Now I'm going to take off the transmission, but before I do that, I'm gonna remove the starter. We now have the transmission off, and it's a good thing we did this because there was a big hole over on the side there. It made a really nice home for some mice, so it's great that we are taking this off. We made sure that the transmission is safe and stable here, and I am gonna leave the flywheel and the whole clutch assembly attached. It is a new day and there is lots to be done. As per all of your requests, I am going to be taking off the sump because it is important to check in there and just double, triple check that there's nothing suspicious. But since I also really wanna clean off the entire engine before I put it in the car, I'm gonna take off any external parts that I can. And I recently posted a short about the EGR system, and I am going to be removing this exhaust manifold and intake manifold, and I'm going to be replacing it with my old ones because those were all good as far as we know. To start off, I'm going to take off the distributor. I am going to leave the alternator on because it does have that lifting bracket that is connected to the hoist right now that we purposely put on the other day. Before I take off the distributor, I wanted to mention that Elin from Rusty Beauty sent me a great email telling me exactly how I need to measure the spacers for the distributor, and that's just so the gear that connects to the camshaft doesn't have too much pressure on it. But it does seem a little complicated for me, so when I do it, I will definitely be referring to his points and trying to do it to the best of my ability. I do have to get a bunch of gaskets before I put this engine into the car anyways, so I will be measuring that and figuring out how many spacers I need before I get those gaskets. Here's the gear that Elin was telling me about, and I just had to make sure I put a spacer so that not too much pressure goes on it. He actually made a great video about it, so I will link that here. While we're here, I'm going to take out this air distributor since I'm not going to be keeping it on the final engine. I'm going to start by taking off the manifold, this bit here, the housing for the fan belt, and any other things that I can take off like hoses and whatever else I can. So unfortunately, we didn't heat up the engine with an oxyacetylene torch, and this guy just snapped right off, so we're gonna have to get that stud out. Oh, but there goes the washer. got both manifolds off now, and so separately I'll be taking off the carburetor so that I can put it back on the engine afterwards. Good thing we took all those off because it is nasty in here, and we are gonna have to replace this stud as well and get it out. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take off this plate. It had the fan belt on it before, but we're gonna replace with my old one because it's in better condition. There we go. We also took it off with this whole pipe attached as well. I think this is where the coolant goes, but it does look really rusty. Can you guys let me know if you think that's a problem that it's super rusty, or if I just spray it with some rust off, maybe it'll be all right? You let me know. We took off everything that we could, and I really want to clean off the engine well, but like I said, we are going to check the sump. So what we're going to do right now is hoist up the engine, and then we'll take off the sump to make sure that there are no surprises. I have another special guest in today's video. It is my nephew Colson, and do you have anything to say about my car? He is very, very excited for this car to finally get started working so that I can take him for a drive in it, and he has already claimed to be the next owner of it when I don't want it anymore. He wants to help out today, so he's gonna help us with the jack, and that way we can hopefully get this car started sooner, and then we can go for a drive, right? Perfect.
So let's see if you're strong enough to push on that pedal. Ready? And go. Get. Go.
Whoa.
Yeah. Stand up.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can help you. Okay. Let's see if Grandpa.
Teamwork.
So jump down.
It's heavy.
Why don't you put your foot on top of my foot? One.
Whoa! It's starting to spin.
See how it's spinning?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. We're gonna keep going. Lift up now. We have to let the air come back in. Ready? Now step on my foot again.
And whoosh.
Down. Okay. And one more time.
There we go. Now that the engine's on a different angle, we're gonna see if we can drain any more oil out of it, and then we're gonna take the sump off. Oh. Oh, there's a big chunk. Oh. In case anybody was wondering, this is how chunky it was when I thought I was filming that last episode, but I was not filming. This is the serious chunkiness.
I'm taking the data off of the take of Manifold.
Yeah. Good job.
It's been a while, but that is all I have done on the car so far. I'm so glad to have had my extra helper Colson with me. In the next video, I will be taking off the sump and I'll be cleaning off the engine. And I actually did get some new gaskets and parts, so I'll be showing you those in the new episode as well. That is the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!